So I wanted to discuss the two different types of PRDs, personal radiation detectors, that we have on the Spec Ops units. So we have the black ones on all engines and we have the blue ones on all rescues. So the only difference between them is that one will still kind of give you an idea of what the classification is of the radiation. So it'll give you something like medical, it'll give you natural or investigate. And this one will actually identify and give you what type of isotope it is, whether it's uranium or plutonium. So we need to make sure when we take care of these things that they have in the back actual rechargeable AA batteries. And these are to stay on all the time. And they sit in the cab, in the charger, always charging. And that way, then when we go through something, it'll pick it up. That way we don't have to turn something on because we can't see radiation. So another thing to note is that these only detect gamma radiation and neutron radiation. They will not detect alpha or beta radiation. So when you go to use something on a powder, make sure that you use the Frisker or the Ludlum to actually make sure you rule out those other two types of radiation. So when we look at these, when you first bring it up on the screen, it'll take a background reading. So right here it says 2 and it has a little small U and an R. So that is micro rem per hour. And if we look up here on the chart, we have micro rem, millirem, and rem per hour. So 1 rem per hour is 1,000 millirem per hour. 1 millirem per hour is 1,000 microrem. And this thing will auto correct and auto change once it gets to that 1,000. And it gets up to the millirem range, it'll automatically change over and you'll see the symbol change too. So when we're using these, we need to make sure that we check the doses. So we need to talk about the difference between dose and rate. So when we think about a dose is how much you're getting, how much you've received, what dose did I get? So when we go through these, make sure that they're reset on big truck check to 0. And if you show up to an incident and you have, if you're able to remember, make sure that you set it to 0 before you get out of the truck. And what that does is it tells you how much radiation your body's received or this monitor's received during the course of the incident. Now the rate is different. It's like a speedometer. So it tells you how fast you're going. It tells you how much radiation is coming in right now. But the dose will tell you overall the incident, how much you've received, because you might go into a really high radiation area, go back to a low, to another medium, to a high, and that gives you the overall count. So the rate is what we want to look at when we're trying to find something, and as the rate goes up, we know that we're getting closer. One thing to note about these is that they both take into account the background radiation. There's radiation all around us, and so it is picking something up. But there are certain things that give off a little more radiation naturally. So it takes into account the background, but if you go to some of these higher areas, it may alarm, but it may not necessarily be a problem. So for instance, the Capitol is made out of granite and it's radioactive. So when you go towards the Capitol or you get close to it, these might start alarming and then it'll take a new background reading and then it'll stop after a while. But just know that there's certain things like granite pathways, granite in the Capitol that can make it actually go off. One thing to talk about is the limits. So it goes from 1 microrem per hour all the way up to 25 millirem per hour. After that, it's not reliable. So the dose that you're receiving, it's not getting enough to where, it's getting too much to where it can't calculate it correctly. So anything over 25 millirem per hour on the rate is not going to be it won't be a good detector for you to accurately calculate your dose. That's why we have other detectors on the unit as well.